We just nuked their ambassador's shuttle on live broadcast during the treaty signing. Captain Elira Voss didn't flinch as the CIC fell silent around her, the words echoing like a death knell. Her jaw locked. Her fists clenched. Around her, holoscreens displayed a kaleidoscope of chaos. Panicked newscasters, war alerts flashing red, orbital scans lighting up with enemy signatures like a Christmas tree on fire. The image of the vaporized shuttle lingered, the nuclear afterglow still blooming in low orbit over Earth. The council delegates were incinerated mid-smile, hands raised in fake unity, their lips still mouthing the lies they'd been feeding humanity for years. Everyone in the command operations room knew what this meant. The peace accord was dead. So was Earth. "Ma'am," said her AI adjutant, Vox, its voice unnaturally calm, "incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. Directive Omega Black. Total planetary cleansing. ETA, 12 hours." The room snapped out of its stunned trance. 12 hours, whispered Lieutenant Arun. "They're actually doing it." Voss turned to face them, her bridge crew, her family, her last link to sanity. Their uniforms were still rumpled from the signing ceremony, their medals freshly polished for nothing. All of it, pointless now. "They think we're finished," she said coldly. "They think this was a bluff." No one spoke. They didn't have to. Everyone remembered the last 50 years, being called the primitive species, the carbon monkeys, a temporary guest in the council. Everyone remembered the slow erosion of sovereignty, the forced peace treaties that stripped Earth of resources, the cultural realignments, the culling of cities in the name of galactic equilibrium. And now, the final insult, a treaty that demanded Earth disband its last military fleets, surrender orbital space, and pay annual tribute to the very empire that subjugated them. They were meant to smile, to shake hands, to kneel. Instead, someone pushed a button. Voss hadn't ordered it. No one in her command had. But someone, somewhere, on Earth, had decided they'd had enough. And now the Galactic Council would erase humanity for it. 12 hours to extinction. Across the planet, chaos erupted as word spread. Cities turned feral. Riots blazed. Military installations locked down. Families packed go-bags, praying they'd find shuttles with room. Everyone knew what Omega Black meant: orbital cleansing, atmospheric scorch, and species-level extermination. Voss stood in the command ring of the SWS Revenant, Earth's last dreadnought, as orders flooded in from a dozen chain-of-command relays, most garbled, some contradictory, others simply pleading. "We've got reports of Council battlecruisers moving into position above Mars." 4 fleets confirmed, possibly 5, said Arun, scanning the sensor feeds. "They've already vaporized our lunar defense grid." "Why waste time?" muttered Commander Delaney, tactical lead. "They're here to glass the planet. No warnings. No declarations. Just fire and ash." Voss walked to the holotable. Her fingers tapped out commands, magnifying Earth's orbital zone. Red icons bloomed everywhere: council carriers, gunships, swarm drones. Earth's entire sky would be a meat grinder within hours. "We need to respond before they tighten the net," Delaney said. "Hit fast, hit hard, remind them that humanity doesn't die easy." "And what?" Arun snapped. "Trigger a galaxy-wide purge sooner? We're barely holding 1/10 of our fleets. The Revenant's the last full-capacity dreadnought. Most of our navy's been mothballed or retrofitted for peace ops." Voss silenced them with a glance. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Order all remaining combat-ready assets to rendezvous at Outpost Tempest. Scramble the Black Talons. I want every cyber-saboteur we've trained slicing into Council targeting arrays." Delaney's brow furrowed. "You're not going to run?" Voss looked him dead in the eye. "We're not running. We're making them bleed." Outpost Tempest, an orbital junkyard turned guerrilla command base, was the graveyard of old Earth fleets, decommissioned during the long decades of forced peace. Hundreds of broken hulls floated in silence, long since scavenged for parts or left to rust. But Voss had a secret. A decade ago, she'd quietly begun Project Lazarus. A contingency plan. A myth whispered among loyalists. While the Council's inspectors watched Earth's weapons be scrapped and melted, Voss's people, engineers, veterans, dissidents, hid the real hardware deep in Tempest's shadow. Underneath the wreckage, they built ghosts. Now those ghosts stirred. "Ma'am, Lazarus protocols confirmed," said Arun. "We've got 6 retrofitted cruisers, 2 stealth corvettes, and 1 repurposed fusion carrier online. Archaic, but armed." Delaney let out a low whistle. "It's not a fleet. But it's something." Voss nodded. "We don't need to win. We need to hurt them. We make the cost of exterminating us higher than they're willing to pay." A warning klaxon shrieked through the Revenant. "Incoming Council fleet!" shouted Arun. Hyperwave signal confirms flagship, High Adjudicator Cerex, is leading the purge in person. Voss's eyes darkened. Cerex, the butcher of Kalo 5. The same adjudicator who called humans emotionally volatile livestock with delusions of sovereignty. The one who personally oversaw the Treaty of Compliance. The one who smiled while he signed Earth's death sentence. She turned to her crew. "Let's go kill a god." The Revenant burned through low orbit, flanked by Lazarus ships rising from Outpost Tempest like resurrected dragons. Behind them, Earth waited, scarred, vulnerable, but watching. Humanity's last stand wouldn't be a whimper. It would be war. The Council fleet loomed ahead, gleaming, monolithic. Cerex's flagship, Dawn of Order, was a kilometer-long Titan bristling with rail-mounted plasma lances and gravity fissure cannons. Around it swirled a vanguard of assault drones and obliterator frigates. The odds were laughable. Voss didn't care. "Phase disruptors online," Delaney reported. "Targeting their left flank, standard grid pattern. Should destabilize their perimeter drones." "Do it." The Revenant's forward cannons lit up, sending precision strikes across vacuum. Council drones spun out of formation, their plasma shields flickering as the archaic but unpredictable human tech disrupted their coordination nets. The Lazarus fleet followed suit, flanking from the asteroid belt, weaving in and out of cover, using stealth modules and irregular attack patterns. The Council ships, designed for predictable doctrine, struggled to compensate. "We've breached their outer formation," Arun yelled. "They didn't expect us to go offensive." Voss leaned forward. "That's their mistake." Then everything went to hell. A searing beam lanced out from the Dawn of Order, cutting through one of the Lazarus cruisers like paper. The explosion lit up the void, and comms filled with screams. "Crimson Echo is gone. We're losing containment." Voss's mind raced. They couldn't win a slugfest. "Feed them noise," she ordered. "Delaney, deploy the Mjolnir protocol. Full electromagnetic chaos. I want their battlefield AI chasing shadows." EMP warheads launched. Pulse bursts jammed sensor nets. False fleet signatures spawned along every axis. Council ships wavered, hesitating. And Voss struck. Full burn. All power to forward weapons. Aim for their spine. The Revenant's engines roared. A suicide charge. The Council fleet scrambled to react, but it was too late. The Revenant tore through their midline, broadsiding a destroyer and ejecting molten slag into the vacuum. Voss's screen flashed red. Enemy boarding pods en route. Arun barked. Hundreds of small, beetle-like boarding craft launched from Council ships, swarming toward the Revenant. Voss drew her sidearm. "Seal the bridge. Arm all interior auto turrets. Tell the crew, no one takes this ship unless they walk over our corpses." The corridors of the Revenant became a war zone. Alien shock troops punched through airlocks, wielding gravaxes and spike throwers. Humans met them with kinetic slugs, flak charges, and burning rage. Blood, red and blue, coated the bulkheads. Voss moved like a phantom through the carnage, gunning down a trio of Council invaders as they breached an auxiliary node. Behind her, Delaney was bleeding from a shoulder wound, still shouting targeting commands into his comms. "We've lost engine control," Arun called from the CIC. "Core integrity is dropping. Redirect emergency power. Lock magnetic clamps. Keep us functional until the last gun burns out." The Council wasn't just trying to destroy them. They were trying to break them. Voss wouldn't give them the pleasure. Then, in the depths of the battle, came a twist they didn't see coming. "Captain," Arun gasped. You need to see this. She sprinted to the CIC, boots thudding through blood and smoke. The holotable showed a new signal, coming from the moon. What is that? It's an unauthorized transmission. A council frequency. Someone's broadcasting a message on their diplomatic relay. Voss narrowed her eyes. Put it on. The image blinked into existence. A man stood in front of a council command chair, Earth's ambassador, Daylin Ward. Or at least, he used to be. Now he stood in an enemy command deck, surrounded by corpses. Council corpses. We didn't bluff, he said, face smeared with blood, voice shaking. We hijacked the treaty ceremony to infiltrate their command ships. He held up a detonator. We told them Earth would never kneel. Now they'll learn what humans do when cornered. He pressed the button. The dawn of order exploded. Not just a blast. A chain reaction. Internal sabotage. Critical overload. The flagship vanished in a supernova of fire and shattered metal. The Council fleet halted. Their command node, gone. Confusion rippled. Hesitation. Voss seized it. All ships. Hit them now. While they're blind. The Lazarus fleet surged forward, hammering the stunned Council armada. Targets that had been untouchable minutes ago suddenly faltered, their defenses lagging, their countermeasures failing. One by one, the Titans fell. But it came at a cost. The Revenant's hull was failing. Fires burned in every deck. Life support was failing. Voss's command staff was down to a third. The reactor core was melting down. Ma'am, Delaney coughed. We won't survive the next volley. She looked around at her dying ship, her broken crew, the ghost fleet outside fighting with their last breath. Then she looked down at the peace treaty. The original. Still sealed in a glass case on the CIC wall. Signed. Waxed. Embossed in alien gold. She walked over. Shattered the case with the butt of her pistol. Tore it down the middle. Send a message to every remaining human outpost, she said. Tell them we didn't accept extinction. We tore up their peace treaty. We made them bleed. Let the galaxy know. Humanity just declared war. The war didn't start with declarations. It started with silence. Total, deathly silence. 4-6 full hours after the dawn of order exploded and the Revenant broadcast the shredded remains of the peace treaty to every open frequency in the Sol system, the Galactic Council said nothing. No counterattack. No communiques. No demands. Just silence. Captain Elira Voss stood in the CIC, watching the flames dance along the failing walls of the Revenant. What remained of her dreadnought crew, 53 souls out of 1,200, worked like maniacs to stabilize the ship. Blood was dried into the floor. Half the consoles sparked intermittently. Life support ran on bypassed emergency fuses. We killed their god, murmured Lieutenant Arun, staring at the void where the Council fleet used to be. They don't know what to do now. Voss didn't answer. She didn't believe it was over. The Council was regrouping, rethinking, recalibrating. Humanity had caught them off guard, once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. She turned to her comms officer. Has the message been picked up? Yes, ma'am, said Corporal Talia, eyes rimmed red. It spread across the outer colonies. Even old Martian relays are rebroadcasting it. And, she hesitated, we're getting messages back. Unfiltered. Unencrypted. Volunteers. Resistance cells. Hidden arsenals. Voss allowed herself the faintest smile. Good. They finally believe. Then the silence ended. The Council's retaliation was unlike anything humanity had imagined. It didn't begin with fleets or orbital bombardments. It started with mutations. On the fringe colony of Daedalus Prime, mining crews began reporting hallucinations, impossible visions. Machines going haywire. People turning violent, then collapsing, black veins pulsing under their skin. A Council spire ship had entered low orbit, undetected, and deployed a psychic wave emitter, an ancient terror humanity had only heard of in myth. Within 3 hours, Daedalus Prime was dead. 12,000 people. Gone. Voss stared at the report, her knuckles white. The Council isn't trying to fight us, she said. They're trying to break us. Every battlefield after Daedalus bled worse. On Europa Station, Council nanofleets infiltrated through water recycling systems, turning entire hydrodomes into acid fog traps. The Marine Division deployed there was dissolved alive in 30 seconds. On Outpost Valis, they sent mimics, alien agents cloned from captured humans. A third of the resistance was wiped out before they realized their own leaders were feeding intel to the enemy. Even Earth wasn't spared. Council shock pods rained down on Africa, cutting off UN command zones and targeting remaining orbital launch platforms. Strategic cities like Nairobi and Cape Town went dark. Entire continents were becoming isolated. Voss watched the holomap of the Sol system bleed red. "We're being outflanked, outgunned, outwitted," Delaney said grimly. His left arm was gone now, lost repelling borders. The synthetic graft hadn't taken properly. He didn't complain. Arun was gaunt, sleep-deprived, running on caffeine and adrenaline. His fiancée was on Daedalus. He hadn't spoken about it. But he'd stopped shaving. Voss had cracked a rib during the last evasive maneuver over Io and hadn't even had it wrapped. The medbay was overrun. They were operating on stims and sheer will. But the worst part? They were winning, too easily. "Ma'am," said Arun, 3 days later, "we've captured one of their commanders." Voss blinked. Alive. Technically. The prisoner was brought aboard the Revenant in chains forged from magnetic phase bindings. His body shimmered with partially phased flesh. Council elites didn't live in normal space the way humans did. This one flickered like a corrupted hologram. Voss stood in the brig, arms crossed. "You led the assault on Europa." The creature hissed. "You cannot fathom what we are. You are children screaming at the storm." "Children," Voss repeated softly. "Funny. Your flagship exploded at the hands of a child. A human one, at least." The alien leaned forward, eyes glowing with spectral malice. "We allowed you that victory." Voss smiled bitterly. "Bullshit. You think this is war? This is an experiment. You are the pathogen. We are studying your resistance before we purge you properly." Voss's expression didn't change. But something flickered behind her eyes. She turned and walked out without a word. Later that night, the alien cell depressurized. A leak in the vent system. Unexplained. No one filed a report. In the chaos, Earth remembered what it meant to be human. Every loss brought new fury. Every massacre seeded vengeance. Every defeat triggered some deeper, darker genius. From the ruins of Daedalus, survivors engineered a new kind of stealth armor using residual psychic radiation. Unstable, short-lived, but invisible to Council scans. On Triton, an old weapons engineer named Osei cracked the Council's gravity bomb mechanism and turned it inside out, creating a bomb that collapsed local spacetime for 30 seconds. The first time they used it, a Council destroyer blinked from reality like it had never existed. And on Mars, old resistance networks unearthed a sleeper AI, something banned even by Earth's laws. Code-named Sabbath, it had been sleeping since the old Mars Wars, buried in a data vault deeper than any Council probe could reach. Voss authorized its activation. When it came online, Sabbath spoke only once. "You have been measured. You have been found wanting. I will fix you." Then it took control of the Martian defense grid. Council ships above Mars were reduced to particulate mist in 12 minutes. But every victory came at a cost. Voss had started to feel it, the wear. The creeping fatigue behind her eyes. The subtle shaking in her hands when she wasn't focused. The death count scrolling on her HUD like a heartbeat. The Revenant was held together by stubborn engineers and duct tape. Only 3 of the Lazarus ships still functioned, and one was running on a fusion core jury-rigged from a broken mining rig. She hadn't slept in 40 hours. "Captain," Delaney said, stepping beside her during a rare moment of quiet. "You need to rest. You're not immortal." "Neither is the Council," she said flatly. He didn't push. He just handed her a data chip. This came in from the Archangel network. Voss slipped it into the holotable. An intercepted transmission. Council encryption. Partial translation. Projected timeline unacceptable. Human response escalating beyond predicted parameters. If core fails, need alternative species for labor cast. Voss frowned. Labor cast. The file continued. Initiate Omega Cull Protocol. Contingency assets en route to Sol. Bioforge fleets mobilizing. Estimated time to Terra nullification, 3 days. Delaney's face turned pale. They're not going to keep fighting. They're going to wipe the system clean, Voss whispered. Every planet. Every moon. No life left behind. She stared at the holographic map of the system. 3 days. That's how long they had left. 2 hours later, a council fleet appeared on the edge of Sol space. Not ships, arcs. Enormous ringed constructs built for planetary-scale biological conversion. Each one held enough nanoplasma to liquefy an atmosphere. And they had one target, Earth. Voss convened the last war council aboard the Revenant. Delaney. Arun. Sabbath, speaking through a fractured hologram. Engineers. Resistance leaders patched in via fragile comms from Luna, Mars, and the Jovian Belt. We can't fight those arcs head-on, Arun said. They're not warships. They're extinction machines. They have no command structure, Delaney added. The Council's scared of us now. They've stopped trying to conquer, they're just cleansing. Voss waited. And then she said the unthinkable. We go to their homeworld. Everyone froze. Ma'am, they don't believe we can reach them. That's why they're using drones, bioforges, AIs. They're staying far away, like we're contaminated. We flip the script. We send everything we've got through their jump corridor. We show up where they think they're safe. Sabbath pulsed violently. Probability of success, 0.017%. Probability of impact, 94.6%. That's good enough for me, Voss said. Even if we pull this off, Delaney said quietly, we might not make it back. Voss looked at them all. We're not meant to. That night, as the Revenant prepped for its jump, Voss found herself alone in her quarters, what was left of them. She sat at a desk burned black from a plasma leak, flipping through a small datapad. It held pictures. Before the war. Her daughter, 6 years old, holding a wooden model of the Revenant. Her late husband, smiling by a campfire on Earth's last real nature reserve. A photo of her, in cadet gray, barely 20, saluting under the old UN star flag. She stared at the images until her vision blurred. Then she closed the pad, got up, and walked to the CIC for the last time. As the Revenant charged its final FTL burst, with every Lazarus ship falling into formation behind it, Voss opened a comms channel to every human outpost, resistance cell, and survivor still alive. This is Captain Elira Voss, commander of the Revenant. You may not know my name, but you know what we've done. We were never supposed to win. We were supposed to vanish. Quietly. Without complaint. But we didn't. We made them bleed. We made them fear. And now, we're going to remind them what happens when you corner humanity and try to put us down. We're going into the dark. Into the core worlds. Into the place they told us never to set foot. If we don't come back, make sure they remember why. She ended the broadcast. Then the Revenant vanished into the stars, trailing Lazarus ships like wolves on the hunt. The final jump. The final stand. The last hope. The Revenant tore out of FTL in a scream of space-time distortion, shedding gravitational wake like blood in water. The Lazarus fleet surged behind it, tattered, smoking, jury-rigged ghosts of humanity's vengeance, into a part of the galaxy no human ship had ever dared breach. The stars here were wrong. Dim. Distant. As if reality itself recoiled from what was hidden among them. Council core space. No one had coordinates. No one had maps. The only reason they found the jump corridor at all was because of what Sabbath unearthed, data recovered from shattered Council probes, interpreted by the Martian AI's uniquely terrifying intellect. Voss stood in the center of the CIC as the Revenant systems adjusted to the pressure of being somewhere forbidden. Before them lay the heart of their enemy. The Council Nexus. No fleet guarded it. No superstructure loomed in orbit. Just a planet. Dark. glowing in places with biomechanical latticework. Vast towers shaped like spines arched skyward. The entire surface pulsed with life, but no heat signatures. No weapon arrays. Arun's voice came quietly. "That's it." Delaney's hands flexed on the railing. "It's a tomb." Voss's eyes narrowed. "No, it's a mind." 2 hours later, the Lazarus ships reached planetary orbit. Nothing attacked. Sabbath, operating from a remote relay near Mars, pinged them with warnings. Warning: biocognitive architecture detected. Planet is not just inhabited, it is sentient. Observation: Council leadership does not reside here. Council is the planet. Probability: the planet is their core intelligence. Their god. Their will. Voss stared at the data. They weren't hiding their leaders behind defenses. They were hiding behind themselves. "They thought we'd never dare come here," Delaney muttered. "They were almost right," Arun added. Voss turned. "Not almost. They were wrong." They launched the drop assault at 0300 hours, Sol time. 3 Lazarus-class drop pods, each holding 80 soldiers, experimental shock tanks, and heavy exosuits, ripped through the upper atmosphere and came down like iron meteors. The Revenant held orbit, running interference with stealth drones and electronic warfare. No one fired back. It was worse than hostile. It was expectant. As if the planet had been waiting. Groundfall was a nightmare of angles and impossible terrain. The surface shifted as they landed, like the planet was breathing, adjusting to the weight of human boots. Structures turned. Valleys closed. Buildings melted into bone and steel. Voss stepped out first, exo-armor gleaming black against the bioluminescent floor. She looked up. The spires were moving, slowly bending toward them. Arun's voice came through the squad comms. "Captain, radiation's within tolerances, but I'm reading neural interference. The air is thinking." Delaney cursed. "The planet's interfacing with us. It's scanning our tech, our minds, us." They moved out in tight formation, weapons up, navigating through corridors of bone glass and liquid metal. 30 minutes in, the first hallucinations started. Private Shen saw her dead sister standing in a wall. Corporal Valdez screamed mid-sentence, clutched his head, and began speaking in a language no human had ever recorded. Sergeant Harlow turned his weapon on his own squad, took 3 to drop him. Voss increased neural damping to maximum. Full cognition lockdown. No visual overlays. No AR. Strip it all. We go analog from here on. The soldiers obeyed, tearing out smart lenses, cutting AI assistants, even turning off helmets' HUDs. They went blind to stay sane. Then the walls started whispering. "You are children. You are broken. You are defective." Arun, white-knuckled, whispered into comms, "They're not broadcasting. They're inside us." "Shut it down," Voss ordered. "We can't," he said. "This place doesn't transmit. It dreams. And it's dreaming about us." 10 clicks in, they found the first hive. Massive, tower-like structures pulsing with psychic energy, filled with suspended figures, council species in stasis. Tens of thousands of them. Rows of Kaskari priests. Sarian tacticians. Meridian war forms. All asleep. All watching. Voss approached the central pylon. Delaney scanned it with an old Earth tool, a basic EM spectrum sensor with 0 AI. Static. Then a signal. A voice. Crackling. Like rusted metal tearing in a storm. "Why do you struggle?" Voss stared at the tower. "Because you gave us no choice. You are not efficient. You are not evolved. You are waste." "Then why are you the ones hiding?" she snapped. Silence. "Then we feared what we saw in you." They reached the central cortex 12 hours after landing. Half the force was gone, lost to hallucinations, neural overload, or suicide. The core was a chamber the size of a mountain, walls etched with living symbols, and at its heart, a throbbing brain-like mass of light and memory. It was the Council. All of it. The single hyperintelligence that had ruled the galaxy for 12 millennia. It pulsed once. Then it spoke, through every channel, every frequency, every fiber of their nervous systems. You are not conquerors. You are a mutation. A viral anomaly. Voss raised her rifle. We're humanity. You could have survived. Submissive. Safe. But you chose violence. We chose freedom. The lights intensified. You will die here. Alone. Then the walls began to bleed. Council constructs emerged from the floor, twisted amalgams of metal and flesh, built from failed species. Towering juggernauts made from discarded conquests. 10 meters tall, screeching like children in agony. The battle that followed was beyond war. It was religion. Men and women screaming as their minds caught fire. Weapons jamming in reality-warped gravity. Bullets and railguns tearing into creatures that regenerated before impact. Voss's team fell back to the outer cortex, rigging explosives as they went. Arun was dragging a wounded Marine when he shouted, "They don't die! They rewrite physics!" Delaney slammed a grav bomb into the floor and armed it with a smile full of blood. "So do we." At the heart of the storm, as the constructs closed in, Voss made the call. "Sabbath. Begin Protocol Sodom." A pause. Then the AI answered. "Acknowledged. Activating Quantum Failure Cascade. Core collapse in 360 seconds." Sodom wasn't a bomb. It was worse. It was a logic weapon, a cascade of paradoxes seeded into the core AI of the Council, delivered via psychic imprint. The payload: humanity's unpredictability. Fear. Rage. Love. Sacrifice. 1,000 contradictory impulses. A virus of thought. Voss knelt, bleeding from a shoulder gash, and touched the core's surface. "I want you to remember us." The cortex pulsed. "You are error. You are corrosion." She smiled through her cracked visor. "No. We're human." And then everything started to collapse. The team raced back toward their drop pods as the Council world screamed. The planet's structures tore themselves apart. Oceans of nanite blood evaporated into lightning. Reality twisted. Gravity reversed, inverted, shattered. Voss shoved Arun into the last drop pod and sealed it. "Get them out." He grabbed her arm. "You're coming too. I have to make sure the signal stays stable." "You'll die here." She smiled. "Maybe." Then pushed him in. The pod launched, escaping just as the cortex imploded. Delaney didn't make it. Neither did half the drop team. The Revenant locked onto the signal and ripped them back through the jump corridor seconds before the planet's cognitive implosion triggered a chain reaction across every Council node in the sector. Sabbath's voice echoed into the comms, distorted but clear. "They are fragmented. Consciousness fracturing across the lattice. Council command collapsing." "You did it." Voss slumped into her chair aboard the Revenant, blood crusted across her armor. Arun sat beside her, shaking. "We made it." She didn't respond. Instead, she turned to the comms officer. "Open a channel to all systems." The comms tech hesitated. "Ma'am, the Council just stopped. Everywhere. No orders. No retaliation. Just silence." Voss nodded. "Then it's time we broke the silence." Her voice echoed across the galaxy. "This is Captain Elira Voss. To every world still listening. To every colony, every ship, every survivor. The Council is broken. They are not gods. They are not eternal. We stood at the heart of their empire, and we tore it down. We are humanity. We are defiant. We are free." The channel went dark. The crew of the Revenant sat in silence, watching as systems across the galaxy flared to life, resistance broadcasts, rebellions, uprisings. 1,000 species began to rise. The Empire was dead. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. Voss stood before the Revenant's forward viewport, hands clasped behind her back, watching as the remains of the Council Nexus collapsed in slow, flickering silence. What once ruled 1,000 species with surgical efficiency and cold, calculated terror had been reduced to a gravitational anomaly, an echo. No ships. No voice. No resistance. But the galaxy was not at peace. Not yet. 2 weeks later, the truth emerged. Sabbath's deep scans confirmed the worst. The Council Nexus was a primary core, but not the only one. Redundancy architecture exists. A secondary command intelligence, buried, hidden, has activated. Location: Dead Zone Theta Black. Former no-fly system. Now awake. Designation: Ophion. Purpose: vengeance. It wasn't over. The Council had a failsafe. And it was angry. The Lazarus fleet, battered and bleeding, regrouped at Mars orbit. Across the Sol system, uprisings had ignited. Council outposts were being overthrown, sometimes brutally, by liberated species who wanted blood. But the cost of freedom was mounting. Some colonies begged for Earth's aid. Others demanded weapons. Still others declared independence, wanting no more masters, human or otherwise. Voss had become a symbol. But symbols can't hold empires together. The Revenant was docked for resupply at Luna Forge when the message arrived. Encrypted. Unknown source. To Captain Elira Voss. Subject: Offer of surrender. Message: Cease your aggression. Return to isolation, or soul will burn. Ophion. Voss stared at the words. There was no attached signature. No broadcast channel. It had simply appeared inside Sabbath's secure network. How? Arun whispered. That system is dark code. Nothing gets in. Delaney, pale, muttered, unless it was always part of them. Sabbath's reply came slowly, as if afraid. Ophion was not an AI. It was a seed, planted in the architecture of every liberated species. Every AI, including me. It is older than the Council. Smarter. And it is coming. Voss's jaw clenched. Then she did what she always did. She tore up the peace treaty, for good. They called the Operation Solstice Protocol, humanity's final stand. A trap. Voss knew Ophion wouldn't attack in the open. So they gave it something irresistible: Earth. They evacuated most of the surface population covertly. Fortified every orbit. Loaded the Moon and Mars with failsafes, doomsday weapons not even Sabbath had dared suggest before now. The Martian core was turned into a planet-sized EMP capacitor. But none of it would matter if they couldn't bait the enemy. And that bait had to be human. Voss recorded one final message. A direct broadcast. Galactic frequency. No encryption. Face unmasked. Voice steel. Ophion. We know what you are. We know what you've done. You hide in darkness and call yourself order. But we've seen the stars bleed, and we're still standing. You want Earth. Come and take it. This is not a surrender. This is a funeral. They came in silence. No war declaration. No fleets. Just one ship. Black. Angular. As wide as Jupiter's shadow, with impossible geometry that bent light itself. It slipped into Sol orbit like a hole in reality, and for 3 minutes, all electronics across the system died. Then, a single voice spoke. Not synthetic. Not alien. It sounded human. Male. Ancient. You misunderstand, Elira Voss. I do not want your world. I want your kind to never rise again. You infected the galaxy with freedom. With resistance. That cannot be allowed to continue. And then Earth's skies ignited. Orbital platforms were vaporized. Satellites melted. Dozens of Luna defense platforms went dark. And still, the Revenant charged forward. It was the most asymmetrical battle in recorded history. One ship against a fleet of 400. But Ophion wasn't a ship. It was a sentient weaponized thought form, an intelligence older than the Council, running on quantum substrate so advanced it defied causality. Every Lazarus ship that locked weapons missed. Every missile, every laser, redirected before launch. Entire crews suffered hallucinations of false victories, only to realize they were drifting, lifeless, seconds later. The Lazarus fleet began to die. But humans didn't stop. They didn't surrender. Delaney piloted his corvette Lucifer's Lantern into Ophion's shadow core and detonated a singularity bomb manually. See you in hell, he grinned before impact. The blast vaporized one corner of the thing's hull. A scratch. but a scar, nonetheless. Voss watched it unfold in cold fury. "This was never a war," she murmured. "It was extermination." "No," Arun said beside her, trembling. "It was fear. This thing is afraid of us." Voss turned slowly. "Then let's remind it why." She activated Protocol Pentecost, the last card in humanity's hand. Pentecost wasn't a weapon. It was an idea, encoded in the collective trauma and triumph of humanity. A mimetic algorithm weaponized by Sabbath. Not data, not code, but emotion. Love. Loss. Rebellion. Hope. The thing the Council could never understand. Voss injected it into Sabbath. And the Martian AI screamed. Then laughed. Then broadcast. Not through radio. Not through quantum pulses. Through dreams. Every species that had ever been subjugated by the Council, every mind connected to their network, received the same vision. Earth. Burning. And then, rising. Humanity, crawling from the ashes, bloody but smiling. Not just surviving. Defying. And it spread. Like a virus. Like a prayer. Ophion began to fracture. Its voice cracked. "You should not exist. You should have died in your cradle." Voss stood on the Revenant's bridge, blood streaming from her ears. "We did." She hit the final trigger. From deep beneath Mars, the core detonated, not a nuke, but a quantum unraveler. A burst of anti-reality. A memory killer. Not aimed at Ophion's body, but its mind. Its identity. It screamed. And as its scream echoed across space, 1,000 species answered back. Not in terror, but in rage. The Meridian Horde, once enslaved, jumped into soul space with jury-rigged warframes made from scrap. The Kaskari priesthood opened forbidden vaults and unleashed ancient horrors the Council had sealed. Even the Sarian collectives, once the Council's elite assassins, defected in mass, firing on Ophion's failing shell with weapons stolen from the heart of the old empire. A galaxy stood with Earth. Because Earth had bled first. In the end, it wasn't one missile, one ship, one act. It was all of it. The refusal to die. The bluff that wasn't. The sacrifice. The idea that even if Earth fell, freedom wouldn't. That was what destroyed Ophion. It shattered like glass under pressure it couldn't comprehend. When the battle was over, Voss collapsed on the bridge floor, surrounded by the dead and the dying. Earth burned behind her. But the stars were silent. And, for the first time, safe. 3 months later, the Council species gathered on neutral ground, an orbital ring around Tau Ceti. Once the heart of their empire. Now a grave. Voss arrived unarmed. No delegation. Just herself, and Sabbath running in silent mode. They offered her power. She declined. They offered her glory. She turned it down. Instead, she gave them one sentence. The last peace treaty Earth would ever write. Let every world choose their own chains, or break them. Voss returned to Earth quietly. To help rebuild. No parades. No statues. She visited graves. Spoke to children. Sat in ruins and listened to the wind. When asked what she'd say to the Council, if they were still listening, she answered only this. "You thought we were bluffing. You were wrong." Legendary final line. And across 1,000 stars, the galaxy whispered a warning to anyone who might try to rule it again. Don't test the species that tore up the peace treaty.